Welcome back to Grasping the Gridiron. I'm your host, Zach Thummel, and today we will look at the Seattle Seahawks 2025 NFL Draft and my reaction to that. Alrighty, so I'll start off and go just player, position, school, and kind of give my analysis, and we'll go one by one all the way down to round 7 here. So first off, in the first round with pick number 18, the Seahawks selected Gray Zabel, guard from North Dakota State. And Gray's a guy that I actually got right in the mock draft to Seattle, and he obviously fills a big hole on the offensive line there at the guard position for Seattle, and could play either left or right guard. And either way, he just fits really well in Seattle in an outside zone scheme, being a tackle guy at North Dakota State. I think a lot of that skill set will translate well to the NFL at the guard position in terms of what he's going to be asked to do in this outside zone run scheme. Just an explosive athlete, and I think it's a really fun fit because, you pair him with two tackles that are young but solid foundational players that I just really believe will benefit Zabel in the long term. And I really think that this is a great fit for them moving forward. And then you move to round 2 at the next selection at number 35 overall. You've got Nick Eman Worry, strong safety from South Carolina. And Seattle traded up for this guy, and he's a really, really athletic and physical safety that will remind fans of Cam Chancellor, and just a guy like that similar mold. He looks like a linebacker when you see him out there on the field. 4.38 40-yard dash at 6'3", 220 pounds. So I talk about looks like a linebacker, plays like a true DB in terms of straight line speed. The question is going to be, can he shift his hips in the open field? But I imagine Seattle using him more of a big nickel role. So he'll drop down most likely and play in the box as more of like a sub linebacker or an additional linebacker to create 6, 7, 8-man boxes depending on what the scheme is or what the down and distance looks like. But I think that with Mike McDonald rather, and just a lot of that, the flexibility, and a guy coming from Michigan and Baltimore, this is a player that fits really, really well with what Mike McDonald's trying to do, and it gives him that versatility on the back end for guys like Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, etc. And moving to the second pick of the second round, which is at 50 overall, is tight end Elijah Arroyo. And this is, another scheme fit offensively that I think will be awesome because Arroyo's big, 6'5", 254 pounds, a guy that can block and is, a willing blocker. But I believe that, his role will be more of a candidate for like an early snap guy, meaning he's going to be involved a lot more in the passing game. And, we saw that with him in Miami and the way that, Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo and Mario Cristobal and those guys wanted to air the ball out down the field and, get big plays. And we saw that with Arroyo. He was, a really productive player for the most part. Obviously, the passing or the pass pro and the run blocking doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but I think he has, traits that will be able to translate. I think a lot of what it is he's at the pass game for him is where he's really going to make his money. And then moving to round 3 now, at the number 92 overall selection, the Seahawks took Jalen Milroe, quarterback, Alabama. This is a one that's really exciting. You look in today's NFL, and I'm always a believer in, if you're going to take a guy that has, tremendous upside but maybe struggles in some areas, that upside better be athleticism in today's NFL. And that's, of course, my opinion, but I just think at the end of the day, when your legs work well and you can, sort of make things happen, turn nothing into something, it's that, that old, for the Seahawks fans, it's that old, Russell Wilson type of play where, you're just running around and throwing it to a guy that was originally running a 10-yard out, but now is zigzagged around the field. And, Russell made enough time to go find a guy down the field. I believe that is really a role that Jalen Milroe could develop into. And, again, dual threat quarterback, and the tools, though, as far as throwing the ball offensively, I think that's where it's really exciting, because you watch a lot of these throws that he makes against the Georgias of the world, and it's just, all the tools are there physically. It's going to be the decision-making process and staying even-keeled to keep his, foundation and his balance, making sure he's not throwing off of his back foot, good weight transfer. He's got a thick lower body, and a guy that really is built like a running back. So no problem there in terms of power, but he'll obviously probably sit behind the guy that they just paid a ton of money in, Sam Darnold, and then they'll find the right time for him to come in, which, I just give this a really good grade in round 3, especially considering how highly valued the quarterback position was, and, how great of a leader Jalen Milroe is. And I think that all of that will translate to the NFL, especially if you give him time to sort of sit, marinate, mature, and become a better player. All right, moving to round 5. There's 2 selections here in round 5. At number 142, we've got Riley Mills, defensive end, Notre Dame. And, this is a guy that really could play both positions. And when you look at Seattle and what Mike Macdonald's trying to do with this defense, you couldn't have done any better as far as what Seattle's trying to do here in the later rounds and what they're trying to do with their interior D-line. Seattle's going to run sort of this 3-4-4-3 hybrid scheme, with a more of an emphasis on pass rush. Obviously, you saw, a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence come in, and they sign him for a good amount of money, pari to where he's at in his career. But this is another guy at 6'5", 296, and Riley Mills, that can, rush the passer and play like a tackle and combo in that 3-4 type of defense. But again, Mike Macdonald with multiple defensive looks. So I firmly believe that this is a guy that could bounce around, coming off of an ACL tear. But that's something that, he probably won't be available immediately. But look for him to potentially get into the rotation in terms of the interior D-line as the season goes on. Played with a really good Notre Dame team, and they went, to the national championship, and it was just, really awesome to, I'm sure, for him to be able to do that and see that happen. So, at a bare minimum, you've got a guy that's a proven winner at the collegiate level. At the second round 5 selection, number 166 overall. Great selection here. Torrey Horton, wide receiver, Colorado State. Speedy guy, ran a 4.4, and this was after, an injury that he had during this year. And I really believe that in terms of, just overall, he's got punt return experience, and he, could contribute on special teams. But overall, you just look at the wide receiver aspect. He was a gamer for Colorado State, an absolute dog for them. And I firmly believe that in Seattle, he's going to probably wear multiple hats in terms of what they ask him to do as a receiver, route running, blocking, playing in the slot. He did a lot of things, or he'll be asked to do a lot of things like that, I would imagine. And the reality and harsh reality of the situation is he wasn't asked to do much in Colorado State. He ran, a lot of really basic routes. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he can show, his full route tree as he progresses in the league. But I really, really, really productive guy with Braden Fowler, Nicolosi in Colorado State. His quarterback, those two, had a good connection, and until the injury, they looked really, really good. And then actually there's a third selection in the 5th round. That's my apologies. Robbie Oots, fullback from Alabama, at number 175 overall, converted tight end. I really think that this was fun because Mike Macdonald is going to be, heavy on the run, being a defensive guy. So getting a fullback and, just a guy that could obviously play on special teams too, and someone that could just be all over the field in terms of an NFL player. It's just a great value pick here in round 5. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of sets they use him in. If he's going to be an inline blocker, like an H back, or if he's going to be, just like a straight fullback, or if they'll rotate him in at tight end. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Seattle schemes that up and what Clint Kubiak decides to do. And now we're into the sixth round here. At number 192, the Seahawks selected Bryce Cabeldue, guard, Kansas. And, he's a tackle to guard conversion. This guy was a good athlete. And, again, anytime you get a guy that can be a great athlete with good size, it bodes well for a zone scheme in the NFL. And, like Gray Zabel, I think that these two are kind of similar players, and we'll see. He'll probably be a backup, but, if he ends up earning some time, this would be a tremendous pick in the sixth round for the Seahawks. But, for now, a guy that tackle the guard conversion guy that's going to be, most likely just a depth guy that'll help everyone get better, and we'll probably have a chance to get on the field as the years progress. And then this is probably my favorite pick of the draft right here. Round 7, number 223 overall, Damian Martinez, running back, Miami. This guy, he's listed at the combine at 6 foot, 217 pounds, but Martinez, I imagine, will play as way bigger than that in the NFL in terms of weight wise. And Martinez will probably be a depth piece initially, but I really believe that this guy is going to be a starter at the NFL and a potential, Pro Bowl, All-Pro type player. I firmly believe he's such a physical runner, and people criticize his pass catching ability, yada yada, but you go watch his Oregon State film and you'll see more pass catching ability than you will at Miami. Ironically, considering Oregon State at that time was running more of a downhill run style offense, and Miami kind of this air raid style offense with Cam Ward last season. But with Martinez splitting time with Fletcher in Miami, it's one of those things where I think his draft stock, I think he ended up in the 7th round because of just the overall mentality around him splitting carries with a guy and that production dropping off. But in terms of what we saw with it on the field, he was phenomenal and really did run even at, if it was lighter this season, a lighter weight, he did run incredibly physical for, 217. Looked like a guy that looked like a 230-pound running back out there running at 217. So I think with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, I think he brings a nice, additional thunder role with Zach Charbonnet to Kenneth Walker's lightning. And not that Kenneth Walker doesn't have power, but he's a, incredibly fast tailback. So it'll be interesting to see how Martinez progresses with Seattle. But I wouldn't be surprised if he is a guy that breaks through and can be a consistent carry and maybe a 3-headed monster there in Seattle this season. Staying in the 7th round here, we got 2 picks left, and now here at 234 overall, we've got Mason Richmond, offensive tackle, Iowa, and this guy will stay at tackle, and I think another good fit for Seattle. Iowa ran a really unique zone scheme last year with Caleb Johnson, and Caleb Johnson was phenomenal at just making one cut or lining up his second cut in those zone schemes where you've got double teams and guards or tackles peeling off, getting the linebackers at the next level. The tape for Richmond is phenomenal in terms of opening up holes for Caleb Johnson in that Iowa offense that ran the ball a ton. He'll be a great backup addition with perfect scheme experience again. Great scheme picks here and fits for the Seattle Seahawks on the O-line. And our last pick of the 2025 NFL Draft for the Seattle Seahawks. In round 7, number 238 overall, the Seahawks took Ricky White III, who is a receiver from UNLV. And this is a unique player who stood out on special teams. He actually had 4 blocked punts. Blocked punts are a unique effort play for me, and I think that shows character in a guy that you want on your team in the NFL, as far as effort-wise. Had a 4.44 40-yard dash. So I think that speed, and then his production at UNLV, and just fun, reliable player. I think who knows what his outlook looks like for the team and on the roster, but I think this will he could be a value pick long term in terms of special teams, especially. Thank you for listening to Grasping the Gridiron, and I'm your host, Zach Thummel, as always. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and share on Spotify.